is going to be Mike Marco. He has over 15 years of project management, hands-on work managing projects with engineering, IT, telecommunication, construction, mining, microprocessing, and multiple industries. He has also been a part of the USA government, Navy, and military. He's going to talk to us about why projects fail, and we've seen projects fail, succeed, but when they fail, it's mostly because we have made them fail by not addressing the risks in the environment and creating a hostile environment. Those risks will, create a hostile environment for you and your team members and the project output itself. So, Mike Marco will talk to us about risk severity.
Thank you. Applause for Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here with you again. I visited Madison PMI chapter a couple of years ago, maybe like 8-10 years ago. And again, it's a great pleasure to be back. Thank you for choosing me. I know you had many choices over there. You could have brought somebody who is taller than me, cuter, who doesn't speak English with accent, or somebody who really knows about project management, but you brought me. Not because I'm cheap, but because I'm something special, right? You took the risk, and you brought me here. And guess what? My risk is vague because I already got paid this morning. So I'm risk-free. Look, you don't like me? I think that's my choice when I go home. All right. Today's subject is risk management, okay? And let's keep these 2 hours engaging and kind of interactive. I like hands-on approach, so we will do some exercises here. I hope you had a chance to download the PDF file that I sent to you. If you didn't, you can do it after the class. But let's participate, because it's not about my view of the risk and how risk is supposed to be done. It's more like what you think about the tools and techniques that I will present, and then how we can get better after this session. And anytime if you have any questions, just raise the hand. If you don't understand my English, just tell me to slow down or to speed up or shut up or something. I mean, I think okay, very good. So, we already set up expectation. It's going to be hands-on class. I'm going to bug people with questions, and I want you to bug me as well. Raise your hand and ask any question you have. This is not politically correct class. And I'm politically incorrect since my childhood, and that's how I run my projects. Which means that I try to learn, adapt, and get it done. And I'm a consultant, which is disposable item. And when I'm going to take over a project, I just want to get it done. And in the process, I learn and adapt any technique from any framework that you can think of to get it done. In other words, if you need to use stick, you use stick. If you need to use carrot, you use carrot, or you use both. Okay? So that's why I always say that I'm politically incorrect, because people will say, you're not supposed to say that, stick, carrot, etc. But that's how it goes. People are motivated at the bottom line based on pleasure and pain. And we go to risk management with the same feelings. It's either pleasure or pain. Anybody knows the definition of the risk? What's risk? I'm assuming you're PMPs, right? I'm going to report you to PMI after this class. Risk is any unexpected event that can have a positive or negative impact, which means you can end up with a carrot or stick, very likely with both. So that approach is what we need to use when we learn, adapt, and get it done. I think that's the key message from all of my presentations that I do. Learn, adapt, and get it done, because you get paid by getting things done. Another thing that I want to point here is that I don't follow any process in my presentations. I follow results. So I have a bunch of certificates that nobody cares about, but PMP, that's the most important one, right? But let's say I'm in Six Sigma, I'm certified Scrum Master, I'm in Agile as well. I even wrote some books about Agile and project management on a separate note. But why I'm engaging in all these tools and techniques? Because I believe we need to learn different tools and techniques to get this. All right, that's a message from today. Case studies, I will be asking you questions, and you can just use something from your own work experience. I hope you will participate so I can fill out these whiteboards with some real examples of the risks, etc. Any questions? Okay, no questions? Okay, you saw me in the suit, right? So, let's go back to work now. All right. The references, again, feedback made difference in my world. There are some other books that I would recommend, especially this guy here, Paul Royer. I got this book in 2001 or 2, whatever. And I think it's a small book. I would recommend that you take a look at this book. I don't even know this guy, so I don't get paid for this. This is what we are going to talk about. Life cycles of the product. How we identify risks. How we plan for the risks. How we adopt risk buffers, develop risk buffers, severity analysis, etc. Now, why do I start with the project life cycle? My specialty is a project recovery. When the things go south, I like to jump and try to salvage what is possible. So, understanding what type of environment you're facing, what is the life cycle of your project would help you determine your risk. So let's say if I work in a well-structured environment where the scope is completely defined, right, then I would use waterfall approach. And those are the perfect project management assignments, very boring, everything is planned well, you have experts, they execute, they test, they deploy, no bugs, you move forward, it's a smooth sailing. But then in reality, we always face something, changes, people go, scope changes, technology breaks, etc. And that causes us to move from that perfect waterfall life cycle into something that's more dynamic. And that's why I think understanding of the life cycle that surrounds your project is critical to adapt your approach to the team and actually prepare your team to react on the risks that will come to your project. So this is what I see. Waterfall, again, traditional, well-planned project, incremental, evolutionary, spiral, and then we have a project life cycle as defined by PMI and Agile Scrum. There are other PMI, other life cycles like a plan, do, check, act, etc. I don't want to go deep into those, but again, all of those should kind of reflect the reality of your project environment. And you want to prepare yourself and your team to that environment. Let's say, again, if the scope is well planned, then you don't anticipate any major risks and delays throughout the project. And if the scope is not well defined, then probably you work on an R&D project, research and development project. So people that you pick up to work with you should be kind of risk takers. You don't want to pick personality that doesn't fit into your project environment or life cycle. All right, okay, everybody knows about the project management life cycle, initiate, plan, execute, control, and close. Where do we spend most of our time as a project managers? Very good. And then where are the most of the risks? In execution. So, kind of message from this slide is, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. In other words, if we plan, then we should not see that many risks, at least not negative risks, as much as positive. If you go with the waterfall again, you have a clearly defined scope of the project, you plan, you design, you deploy, you test, deploy, and then you move into production. So everything is like a smooth ride. We already mentioned it. Now this is the one that I kind of like to talk about, incremental. Most of us, we don't work with a complete scope. And as you can see, up to this point, the most sensitive part of my discussion was to define that scope, to have requirements, right? And most of us, we don't work with the stable requirements from the beginning of the project. Okay? So what do we face then? We are facing incremental life cycle, which means that we deliver project in increments. And what I want to focus in such environment? I want to focus on something that's stable. And that message has to be communicated to the customer, to the product owner, or whoever you're talking to. And you need to tell him specifically, give me what's stable. Give me what's not going to change in the project. And that's the first thing that I will start with. And if you take a look at this chart, this requirement will not change throughout the project. And every time I do release, there is a new function that I'm adding to the project. I'm giving time to my customer to come up with the specs, to realize what they want. Now, this is two-way street, right? It's not only me. Customer has to agree on that. This is called incremental. It's part of Scrum Agile approach. It's an iterative way of managing projects. And here's the funny part. This was developed for service industries. And my projects involve construction, IT, mechanical, engineering, chemical, etc. All these team members, groups coming to my project at different phases of the project. I want to see how can I apply this concept to my construction part of the project. You see, that's my, one day when I retire, I would like to write a book, how to apply these tools to completely unknown environment, to something that's from intangible to tangible, how we can apply that and still succeed in the project. I think these type of tools can help break the ice between the team, customer, and you, and other stakeholders. Another concept is called evolutionary. Now, this is an approach when the customer simply cannot come with a stable requirement. So, throughout the project, we evolve, and requirements evolve, and results and outputs evolve as well. What is the key here? When I define my project to be evolutionary, that means that my team members, my customers, my buyers, all stakeholders know that we are engaging a high-risk project when scope is not well defined. So if scope is not well defined, guess what other two things cannot be defined? Time and money. So if you don't have a clear scope, I cannot give you clear or definite timeline or budget. So we have to be adaptable. We have to go through these evolutions. Okay. And then R&D project, something that has never been done before. And let's say for the government, if they open the bucket, you spend as much time and money as possible to deliver something they want. What is the kind of stop here, stop point? They can set up the milestones, checkpoints at which they can simply say there are no more funds for this project, you can kill it now. So again, it's not like an endless pain that you're just throwing money as a customer on something that will never be done. You can set up these milestones when you can make decisions and continue with the project or not. So you can kind of control losses or negative impact of that project in the environment. Again, this is for R&D projects. Now, I don't want to say I'm a smart guy, probably I am, but so this is what I developed. So I wrote something called an Agile Body of Knowledge, it doesn't matter, 2007. And I was looking at the project life cycle from the Agile or Scrum perspective and then traditional project management perspective. And what I found out is that in traditional management, we do not decompose enough. And decomposition is the flow process. When you go from the requirements, scope, and then you go to the WBS, and then you go to the tasks. So I think in a traditional management, we don't decompose well enough at the beginning of the project, so we cannot plan well enough. In other words, we need to dissect our project to the level that people can really understand the risk of the project and how well they can perform based on a given environment. I think at one point we just get tired of planning and we just want to go to execution. And I understand, especially when you talk to engineers, when do they spend most of their time? Executing. They don't want to sit in the meetings. Why? Because meetings are often painful, endless pain. Like the people are talking, arguing. There is no kind of facilitator who can put this together. I think Agile or Scrum has a little better approach than traditional management toward facilitation of the meetings. I also believe, and I will talk about that today when I talk about Agile, I also believe that Agile is more micromanaging than traditional management. And I don't want to argue about that, don't beat me up for that, but I just believe when you have many points to decompose, that means you're engaging with people and you're bugging people to do something. And when I bug you to do something, that means I'm micromanaging. Okay. Now, when you look at the project, we all humans and we like to be positive. Like this presentation, look, it's a smooth ride. Everybody, nobody's falling apart. And then in 5 minutes, we're all screaming here. So, in reality, that's a perfect project manager role. Things always happen. So what is your job as a project manager? Your job as a project manager is always to push things forward. So this is very likely how your project will look like. And this line, you see, this could be a reflection of time and money and stress that you will have on your project. But as a project manager, I never get stuck around the issue. I use conflict resolution techniques that will push me forward. If I don't use the right tools, I would end up in a dead-end project. And that's not because of the technology. It's not about requirements. It's not about the customer doesn't need it on a market ad. It's just because we were not able to solve these conflicts, and behind conflicts are risks. Okay. All right, so again, going back to the project life cycle, the short version, where do we get most of the risks in execution? What type of risk we have? And what type of triggers we have in our risk environment, project environment, really depends on the type of industry. So today when I ask you to do a couple of exercises, I would like you to come up with some risks from your environment. But don't tell me like a vendor is late. That's too generic. See, like you remember I like decomposition. So if you tell me vendor is late, I want to know what vendor, what PO, and who is behind them. So I like to decompose at least. There is a tool called 5 whys. Have you heard about that tool? If you ask somebody 5 times why, you will end up at the final answer, or the cause of that issue, situation. So I like to be an annoying person like that. I don't have many friends on Facebook, but that's okay. So, okay. Now, question to you. Why project managers care about life cycle? Anybody? Structure. What else? I like that. You put framework. And then? Okay, we want to get to the end. That's a good one. But how about to understand the nature, to reflect the nature, and from the beginning to communicate to your stakeholders, hey, this is what's going to happen. One approach that I always use is when I talk to my team members, I always give them a chance to tell me what is the worst and the best case scenario. How long and how much is going to be. So tell me the best and the worst case scenario. And I build a timeline, and I present the timeline to my upper management with that approach. Here is the best, and here is the worst case scenario. And what case scenario would the sponsor remember? The best. That's quite right. I like him for that because he's positive, he's energetic, etc. But I still report both throughout the project. So when I start reporting, what is my accuracy level? What is the accuracy of my, and when I start estimating my project at the beginning of the project? What's accuracy? It goes 75 to 25%. So he would say, Marco, how come this is such a huge range, man? I said, most that's how it goes these days. I mean, not that good. And then when we get close to the end of the project or deliverable, what is the range? Plus, minus 5% or 0, right? And then he says, how come you cannot give me this estimate at the beginning of the project? Well, because we don't have a complete scope at the beginning of the project. Now you think, you can take a look at it. So we need to, again, we need to set up expectations to our stakeholders to learn what to expect throughout the project. And you need to, what's the number one skill for project managers? Communication. You need to communicate it from the beginning. Hey, it's not that I'm fudging or faking numbers. It's going to happen like this because it's the nature of the project. How many of you see the projects done on time? Ever? Okay, good. All right. Go ahead. All right. So let's say, what are the reasons that projects kind of slow down, fail, God forbid? Poor scope management, requirements, documentation. Nobody likes to spend time writing requirements. Customer doesn't know what they want. Team doesn't know how to get that information from them. Hopefully there is a business analyst, but he's frustrated because there are two sides that he cannot connect. You're running in a circle, etc. So I do believe that at one point, project managers should have say no at the beginning of the project. If there are no requirements, you should say there is nothing that we can work with. That's why they pay you. Because if you take that project and you get those partial requirements, for them, oh, they already gave you requirements, what else you want? And if you continue calling them, they will say, no, I mean, we already talked about it, just continue working with what you have. So if there is nothing clear there, or there is not much information to continue, you should say no. Who's supposed to support you in this effort? Team. So you need to talk to team about it. That's why I kind of like Agile, because in Agile and Scrum, team is very empowered. I will talk about it this afternoon at 2:30. They can go in another direction as well, but team is empowered to say, no, we cannot continue with this because there is not enough information. If I, as a team member, don't have enough information to do X, Y, Z, I would look to find out what of these functions requirements is kind of stable in terms of scope, and that's what I'm going to do. Maybe that's not the highest priority for the customer, but then give me the complete scope and I would prioritize differently. Okay. Again, poor communication. What's the junk information? Have you ever heard about the term junk email? Okay, I call emails that are important to the company, that are essential for the company, but not to you, junk email. So how often you get email like, hey, there is a status meeting and you don't even know what you show up, and you see it, you eat donuts, and you have no idea what they're talking about, and you just wasted 2 hours of your time. So that's another way of losing interest, focus on your team toward getting project done. Stay away from those meetings, and again, say no when you have a chance. Lack of skills, well, we all know that. Availability is not a skill. The fact that my mark is available, it doesn't mean I can do everything, right? Resource conflicts, personality issues. I got it a lot. So you see, as a consultant, you're jumping from project to project. So your ability to blend, to adapt to the team and their culture is very important. And probably you can guess I don't have a sweet personality. So I don't think in all environments. Now, when I kind of run some maturity assessment in the company, I found out that the average company has 135 projects. Now, here is the statistics. Out of those 135 projects, less than 60% are ever completed. And out of those 60%, which is like 80, well, only 66 of those completed on time, on budget, scope is stable. And then out of those 58% of the projects, only 64% are considered to be successful. That means like 40 projects. Out of 135, 40 projects are considered to be successful. Now, is there anybody here who has better numbers than this for your project environment? Or you don't want to talk to me? Well, now, what do you have for breakfast? Some chicken over there, some eating pasta. Okay, now this is statistic, and I even work on 4 different continents, and it's everywhere like this. Well, here's what I see as a challenge, an opportunity for us project managers, brothers and sisters. This is what I see as opportunity. When you go to the company, you know the projects are not getting done. So let's do something about it. Let's change something. And you gotta talk to the upper guys who have no idea what you're talking about, but somehow you gotta sell them that idea that project management can be done differently. That we can at least a little bit our risk management approach to our projects, and we can start getting some results. Again, key is communication.